What is up? The road to 100k a month, episode 9. And what a fucking week, bro. From our first fucking payout to blowing our fucking funded accounts to having troubles and issues with our evals but still pushing through. So much shit. I think genuinely if there was a way that I could phrase this week, it was character building and fucking persistence. And I will be going over every single lesson, everything we learned, everything we went through, all in this video. And starting off as tradition, so I'll put up the P&L of our funded until it got blown on the screen, pulled up. As well as that, I'll also put up a screenshot of our evals. That's what we're looking like so far, which I will explain. It looks like shit. I made a rookie mistake. It is what it is. We're going to learn. I'm going to go over it as well. And I'll obviously put the drawdown for our evals until they're passed, which hopefully should be going into Monday, especially next week. And fuck it, I'm gonna put it up, and that's the fucking payout, bro. That's the fucking payout that we got as of Tuesday. Didn't really feel a thing, and we'll also go over that as well. But starting off with Monday, I didn't mention this to you people last session or last video, but your boy is now a 1400 elo chess player. Just to put that into reference, just let me aura flex here. Your boy is the 96th percentile, the top 4% of all global chess players in the fucking world. Hey bro, and my goal for setting out this year was to end the year off at 1500. I started off the year at like 800. Halfway through the year, it's June. We got to 1400. I think I want to shoot for 1700. The reason I want to shoot for 1700, which might be quite a fucking challenge, but I don't give a fuck, is because that would put me into the 1%. And that's what I want to fucking be. Fuck it, sue me. And that's what I put there. And we accomplished that as of Monday. But going into Monday, we'll go over the trade. So my bias, I'll put the trade up on the screen. My bias was we had a 4-hour bullish gap above that was forming since Friday. We broke past the pre-market open plus price it filled, and broke past new week opening gap pre-market. We're still hitting all-time highs. Suspect another bullish day despite massive pre-market sell-off. Also, all draws of liquidity were to the downside. We swept pre-market. Would like to see how price reacts off the 4-hour gap from Thursday, since we had respected it multiple times, and look for continuation to the upside. We also had news. We had ISM manufacturing PMI at 10 a.m. Barely fucking moved the markets. And as far as the trade, it's pulled up on the screen. So we respected the 4-hour bullish gap. We had a 5-minute plus a 15-minute and a 1-hour V-shaped recovery. We were maintaining bullish structure on all time frames, including the 1-hour and the 4-hour and all the other time frames. We had a 10-minute gap formed. We broke past and closed past the new week opening gap. And we had entered off a 5-minute gap. So we entered 30 contracts, and I think that was the L. So starting off the first pretty much day of the month, I think it was the 1st of June, as L. Valid setup, I really couldn't argue with myself there. I had valid key orders as well, just below the gap, just above the gap, previous session points from after the gap. So it was honestly a good setup, but obviously that was the L. So that was the first L of the week and the month, but we went into a second trade, the same setup, plus another V-shaped recovery, plus I entered off a new 5-minute gap. This time we entered with, once again, 30 contracts and stayed disciplined. So we ended off getting break-evens and partials got hit. TP1 got break-even. So that was that for the day. And then obviously my thoughts were could have and likely should have waited for the breaker structure, especially on the second trade, but anticipated it due to the draws of liquidity above, surely having to be swept. So this is what I'm continuing to do. I put such at my strategy and my confluence lists. Liquidity is my number one, bro. It's literally my number one indicator, and I just couldn't see how liquidity wouldn't have been swept, even if it was just a little bit. So that's why we had our first order filled, and then second was a break even. Also, post-trade, I'm going to give you guys a hack. I live in Dubai, and summer is approaching, and it's already come here, and it's only going to get a little bit harder, I think, from what I know. And a hack I've been doing when I've been trading is turning off my AC. Now, the reason I do this is that without AC, if I get flustered or if I start getting stressed or if I start getting raged a little, I start sweating and it gets me off my game. I turn off the AC purposely so that mid-trade I am low cortisol. Like, I'm not stressing, I'm as cool as a cucumber. And why did I say cucumber, bro? What the fuck, bro? But that is a hack I've been doing and it's actually been working. My psychology and my emotional control when I'm in trades or when I'm looking for setups with the AC turned off, it's been a fucking hack for me, bro. So if you guys live in a hot country, it could be something to test out. That's what I've been testing out. It's so weird, but it actually works for me. Going into Tuesday, continuing to read the book Relentless by Tim S. Grover. Again, highly recommend everybody who wants to adopt a winning mindset to read that book. And I don't want to read the page, but I think it was 103 to 104. And it was Michael just pretty much going over, or Tim S. Grover describing Michael Jordan with dealing with pressure, as I put here in my notes. And dealing pressure to yourself to succeed. Michael, a lot of the times, deliberately put pressure onto himself. And I think a lot of people might look at pressure and adversity as a bad thing, but don't realize that with pressure and adversity is what builds the character of the successful version of you. So the way I took out of that, when I read that page, specifically going over Michael and how he deals pressure on himself to succeed, is something I want to continue doing, and I recommend everybody like you to do the same. Tuesday also marked the day for the first fucking payout in the fucking chat, bro. Which honestly I wasn't too hyped about. Again, mentally I had already accomplished it. It was already done. But it was a win. But as far as the trade, the bias was we had a 4 hour had broke structure to the downside. We had a new day opening gap above that was held strong. We had 3 bullish 1 hours formed during Asia to London session. Draws of liquidity to the upside and to the downside. Would like to see how price reacts to the new day opening gap above and the 1 hour bullish plus the 4 hour bullish gap below. Staying open-minded, still in all-time highs markets. As far as actual setup, we had respected the 1 hour gap. From that, we formed a 5-minute, 15-minute, and a 1 hour V-shaped recovery. 15-minute gap formed and respected, 5-minute gap formed and respected, and we had entered 35 contracts. Break-even partials got hit, and TP1 was a break-even. Thoughts? Yes, Confluence is stacked up, but felt like I should have waited for a clear breaker structure and likely break past the new week opening gap for certainty, but partials and break-evens got hit. Recap, a good zone to set our break-even. That was my observation for that trade. The second one, we continued to feel bullish. This is actually 15 minutes later, so super quickly after it. We had a V-shaped recovery from the entry zone, all time frames plus the 4 hour, which for me was a big tell. Once again, always prioritizing the high time frame. If I see the same confluences stacking up on the high time frame, for me, that's just higher confluences. So if you want to compare a 5-minute V-shaped recovery to a 4 hour, I'm taking the 4 hour all day, bro. And that was continuing the uptrend. We broke past the new week opening gap and a 5-minute gap formed. This time we entered with 40 contracts. Break-evens and partials got hit, TP1 got hit, and then TP2, so this is actually interesting. Bro, I think this was my longest fucking trade. TP2 got auto-liquidated at 445, so on props, specifically with me with Lucid, what ends up happening is if you're in a trade, I think it's at 445 is when it triggers. I think this is across all props. But I got auto-liquidated, so at 445, I was nearly at TP2, but we got auto-liquidated. So I'll put up a screenshot of the actual setup if it's not already there. And then the big screenshot. So I took also a screenshot of my thing showing like the whole trade of how it was. I think multiple times, I think we edged TP2 from the beginning. I stayed disciplined. I didn't want to cash out. So I just let it. I already knew we hit break-evens in TP1, so I was like, I'm just going to let it roll. If it hits break-even, fuck it. We ended up nearly reversing and nearly hitting our break-even, but we didn't, and then we slowly started to reverse. And we're on the way to hit TP2, but didn't. We were just below it, and then at 445, it just exited my order. And that was pretty much the confirmation for my first payout. So it was a W trade. One thing I also started to do with this trade, and I recommend everybody does this as well. I remember one of the prior episodes I mentioned this where I recommend, or one of the practices I do in my trades is I journal everything in real time. So all of these confluences that I'm telling you guys, all these setups I'm taking, I'm doing this shit in real time. So in real time, I see a 15-minute gap formed, I will type 15-minute gap formed, and it helps me just cultivate like a presence and an awareness of what's happening in real time. One thing I've been doing is also specifically writing out where are my orders to be set, my limit orders. So for that trade, an instance was to break evens and partials were at the 1 hour bearish gap zone, which got hit. TP1 was at the previous New York high, that got hit. TP2 was at all-time highs. Actually, TP2, the target was all-time highs. And from that day, I started actually doing it and implementing it for the rest of my trades. I don't want to go over it. I mean, let me know if I don't think it's relevant. I think the setup's more relevant, but that's the takeaway you guys can take away if you want to implement that. I think it's been helping me because it also gives you, instead of just setting orders for the sake of it or just briefly seeing a key significant level, actually writing it down. What is that key significant level? Was it a previous session high or low? Was it a key zone? Whether it was like a 1 hour bearish gap or a 4 hour bullish gap, like I mentioned, it gives you that level of awareness. And yes, we were eligible for the payout. Now going into Wednesday, actually one thing I also wanted to also go here. One thing I'm trying to max out is my communication. So I don't know if many people spot this, but on my last episode, I was quite angry at myself. I review all of my episodes that I record. Just like you watching this, I will review this. I will watch it like a viewer to see what I could do better. How was I communicating? And as of this episode forward, and as of Wednesday, it's a focus I want to put into action, and it is focusing on my communication. So one of the key things I saw in that video was I was saying and just saying some bullshit, bro. So if you guys still spot this in this video, comment and let me know, bro, because it's something I really want to work on. And I was quite angry on when I was watching the previous episode. But going to Wednesday, and this is where we started to fucking take a U-turn from the week. From such a positive week from the first payout, we'll go over it. But as our bias for the week, all-time highs didn't quite make it yesterday. We had so much jolt of liquidity to the upside. We were still in the uptrend on the 4 hour. 1 hour had slowly been 1 hour slightly chopping bearish, 4 hour gap from Monday, and we would like to see how we react from open. So we had ISM services PMI at 10 a.m. And as far as actual setup at the first trade, we had dumped. So this is one thing I wrote here. We had dumped in the first trade. We fell into a downtrend, 15-minute and the 1 hour. We broke past the 4 hour gap. 50-minute gap had formed. I think it was a bearish gap. 5-minute gap formed an inverse. And then we had entered. We went with 35 contracts. Break even and partials, I think, got hit. You see. Or maybe I'm tripping here. No. Yeah, so our stop loss got hit here. Thought we had blew our accounts. So yeah, so $400 drawdown, might as well. Didn't really care, same journey regardless, slowly back. Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna explain this. As our first payouts, this is my mistake. I should have probably said this before I went over the setup, so you guys have context. But going into our first payout, I didn't realize that it would go to this extent. My buffer, my profit margin on each account was at $1,000 when I was eligible to take my payout. The first thing I didn't know was that 50% of your profits aren't able to be taken out. So out of my 1,000 profit buffer, I was only eligible for 500. That was the first thing I realized. Second thing I realized was like, okay, cool, let's take the 500. It is what it is. Surely my buffer can't be that lower after I take the payout. Boy, the fuck was I wrong, bro. I thought this shit would have been at least, I thought it would have at least gone back to our base 2,000. That shit went down to 400. So just for reference, bro, my profit buffer for all of the accounts was 3,000 above the minimum balance. After we took our first payout across all of our accounts, my drawdown went to 400, bro, per account. Meaning, that's the setup I take on one trade. So going into Wednesday, I had, and I found this out 10 minutes before market opens. 10 minutes before market opens, and in my head I was furious. And the quick thinker and the intellect brain of Jake doesn't just sit there and complain and has a victim mindset. I had to come up with a solution, and I had to quickly figure out what were my paths. Path A was I would either slowly start to build that buffer up, or I full port that shit. Knowing that if I full port it and I lose it, I would still be better off if I ended up purchasing new evals and taking 2 days to pass them, and then take my drawdown to 2,000 instead of 400. So the point I put here, I said I didn't really care, same journey regardless, right? It would have been very easy for me, and I think it could be very easy for anybody, to sit there with a circumstance like that and point the finger at anybody and externalize the accountability and not take blame from it. I looked at it as like, fuck, I did a fuck up, it is what it is. What is the best move on the chessboard? I don't know where I took this lesson from. I think it was Tate. But it was, and I apply this philosophy to all aspects of my life, but it's always acting in the position of what is the best move on the chessboard. 10 minutes before market opens, what was the best move on the chessboard? Was it to sit there and furious and be like, fuck man, all of my drawdown is gone, we're going to be blowing our funded accounts? No. I had to try and stay as cool as possible, which I ended up doing. And I came to the realization, okay, we're going to full port this shit. If it blows, it blows. We get new evals, and we make sure we don't make that mistake next time. Which the lesson in that is, don't take minimum fucking payouts. I think if I had took a bigger payout or a maxer payout, I don't think your drawdown drops that fucking much, bro. No fucking way. So that was the lesson in that. And I learned that the hard way. And second trade, on that same day, we bought our evals, and I'll put the screen up on the screen. We fucking failed that trade as well. As far as the setup, we tagged into the 4-hour gap and retraced. We had a 5-minute, 50-minute, 1-hour V-shape recovery, 50-minute gap formed, 5-minute gap formed. We closed above the past 1-hour bearish gap. And I suspected that all liquidity would be taken from the whole morning session. And then the thoughts, we forced a reversal. We didn't stay in trend. And I think at that point I was just a little bit mini tilt. I was on a little bit of a tilt, and I guess I was just trying to find the reversal. The fucking trend, if you look back at that fucking session, was bearish, and that was just undisciplined trading. And so we ended up, as you guys can see, we risked 100 micros. So we risked $1,000 from our evals. That was 50% of our drawdown, and that was the case. So it was a pretty rough day. Like, obviously we got that payout, the confirmations for the payout on Wednesday. 10 minutes before market opens, I realized it's not going to work out. We had a $400 drawdown, and we ended off the day 50% down on our evals. So huge L's, but I wasn't giving up. And post trade, I didn't feel sorry for myself. I was not a fucking loser, as I put here. I had limiting beliefs, and I had to crush them right there and then. And this is one thing I'm very good at cultivating, and it's taken me a while to get to this point, but I'm very good at knowing myself and knowing the beliefs that I have and the things that I'm thinking, the thoughts that I'm cultivating. And I think a lot of people aren't very conscious of their thoughts. They aren't very conscious of the things that they think. And in that moment, I sensed and felt a little bit of a victim mindset coming up. A little bit of a motherfucker who blames and was like, fuck man, fuck these prop firms. What should I do? Should I stop giving up on prop firms? Like, fuck man. Because bear in mind, this is probably the worst day I've had since I've started trading. It was a very tough day. And a little bit of a realization that on the road to 100K a month, shit's not gonna be fucking easy. And I realized that straight after that fucking day. And that's why I had to snap out of it. Because that mindset of externalizing pressure, taking accountability from yourself elsewhere, doesn't serve you, doesn't fucking help you. And so I had to snap out of that. And it reminded me, and I think I wrote it down here, of Alexander the Great. When he first set his campaign against the Persian Empire, one of the things, and this is very known and amongst all the war emperors, including Sun Tzu as one of his war strategies, but it is the concept of burning the boats. When Alexander the Great launched his campaign against the Persian Empire, one of the things he told his soldiers was, we are either leaving in Persian ships or we are not leaving at all. And it's like that phrase that everybody knows of burning the boats. And I had also realized in that day, I've set out to do this challenge. I have set out to make this shit work. What would it be for me to give up? What would it be for me to externalize this shit? And that's exactly the moment. The second I remembered that whole concept of Alexander the Great, it snapped me the fuck out of it. Straight back into the normal Jake fucking Wood. And we got back into that shit. Going into Thursday. So Thursday we had 2 4-hour bearish gaps. We were looking super bearish. We had downtrends on all time frames. Would be interesting to see if price breaks out of the 4-hour gap or respects and inverses to continue downtrend and lower lows. Could be an indicator, draws of liquidity to the both sides. One thing I had pre-decided, I was gonna take and this is my next fuck up. Holy fucking shit, bro. Pre-decided taking 1-to-1. I pre-decided to take 2 trades. 1-to-1 as the $1,000 risk, and the second trade would have been a 1-to-5, $1,000 risk if the setup presents itself. I said 2 times there. The first trade. So I said it again, bro. Holy shit. Bullish. We tagged into the pre-market 15-minute gap and inversed. We had a 5-minute, a 15-minute V-shaped recovery. Breaker structure to the upside. 5-minute gap formed. Second formed. We broke out of the 4-hour gap. Bullish on all time frames. I'll mention how this was a fuck up after I'll explain the setups. As you can see, we fucking hit 95 fucking micros. 1-to-1 risk to reward, $1,000 profit. As you can see. Second trade, put up on the screen, continued bullish, entered off another 5-minute gap. Entered, I think it was like literally like 15 minutes later, 10 minutes, literally straight after it, with 100 micros. This time was a 1-to-5. We smacked that shit. Thoughts. And this is where I'll summarize the point. But we didn't bear in mind the consistency rule. So on a consistency rule, you have a 50% consistency rule on fundeds. And I ended off that day with 170%. I don't know if I have a screenshot of it. I don't think I do. Bro, if I did, I would have been furious. But my consistency rate was 170, and I was retarded not to make this mistake. I was retarded not to be perspicacious enough to spot this fucking rookie amateur mistake. The reason being, on day one, we had lost 995, if I'm not mistaken, by our P&L. And the second day, we won 2.4K. Because in my mindset, I was just thinking, okay, let me take 2 trades. The first trade will take me out of my drawdown, so we would be even on our accounts. The second trade would put me 50% closer to passing my account. In my head, because I was like 1,500, okay, 1,500 left. What I had not realized is my consistency rule was through the fucking window. So as I'll put up on the screen, and I think it was here if I'm not mistaken, this is the drawdown for our evals. Our profit target was now 4,822. Now this on the screenshot, that's now after, this is post Friday, but it was fucked. As you guys can see now, it's like 86 after Friday, but it was 170%. Our profit target now was like 3.2K, so more than if I had just purchased brand new fresh accounts. Once again, all of that work for nothing. Once again, closing the loop for the whole week, the lesson of the week, persistence and character building. That's what it fucking was. And in that instance, I said, in my head, I thought the first trade would get us out of the drawdown. Second trade would get us halfway there. It is what it is. As I explained, I don't think a lot of people might comprehend that. If you do, good. If not, sorry, you might have to re-listen to that. But yeah, that was the circumstance. But going off to Friday, we didn't go into it once again with a victim mindset. We went into it with a winner mindset. So Friday, I had realized, so I truly went into the metrics of what I needed to do. I put here, I couldn't pass today because I needed a 3.4K profit day, but I couldn't exceed the 2.4K win from yesterday. Otherwise, my consistency rule would go up even higher. So I split it into 2. So my plan was, and I had pre-decided this, first trade I was going to take was on the Friday was a 0.7 to 1 risk to reward, risking 200 micros to win 1.4K. And then going into Monday, the trade setup was going to be a 1-to-1 risk to reward, once again risking 200 micros, which is the max per account. And then that, if that trade hits, would end up leaving my account passed, plus following through with the consistency rule. So for you watching this, for you guys with evals or what your circumstances are, keep an eye on that shit. Because it was a rookie mistake from me. Like, I should have been more perspicacious of it. Yes, it was my second time doing it, but I should have known better. And it is what it is. But we adapted. And like I said, going into the second, on the last day of Friday, for those on Friday, let's talk about that fucking bearish crash. Holy fucking shit. I think I looked up after, or I found out after, the S&P was wiped a fucking $1 trillion in value. Holy fuck. But the bias was, we had let me see here. So that was our plan, as I explained about the pre-deciding our trades. But our bias was, we had a beautiful 4-hour BPR gap, which as far as I know, I think it's a bullish and a bearish 4-hour gap interlinked. Price respected Asia and London. 4-hour falls back into a clear downtrend. Good draws of liquidity to the downside and upside, but suspect a likelier bearish day than a bullish. For the setup, we'd like to see a price reaction into our BPR gap and then target lows. That was my bias. That's exactly what ended up happening. Not quite to the extent of our 4-hour gap, but we just launched. I don't think it was a single bullish candle from market open. So we ended up having a 5-minute pre-market gap, another formed key draws of liquidity below fits perfect, and I executed. And I put here was such an ugly trade because, like I said, it didn't have to be a good setup. It literally just had to be a 0.7 risk to reward. So I just had to execute it. First trade was a break even, as far as I know. And then the second trade ended up hitting. And like I said, it was such ugly setups. I don't know. It didn't feel like a good setup, but it is what it is. The job got done. And that puts us in going into Monday with needing to hit that trade. So on Monday, we need to hit a 1-to-1 risk to reward. Once again, we're going to be full porting that shit on our accounts, and we should be passing. And if not, it is what it is. Then we get new evals. But and that's the whole point. I can sit here and I can be angry at myself, but it's a learning journey. Like, we just got our first payout 52 days into the journey. I'm still 2 months, not even 2 months through. But I'm taking these lessons to fucking heart, bro. Like, I keep emphasizing this. And as a chess, and I think for me, this gets instilled within chess. And this is why I recommend a lot of people to play chess. I think it's such a good game. From a life aspect, especially as a trader mindset, you practice things like emotional control, sacrifices that you need to make, pattern recognition. I think would probably be at the top of that list. Seeing patterns, because at its core, chess is just a pattern recognition game. It is seeing moves that have been done from thousands of games you've played before and applying those same moves in action in real time, which is just like the fucking markets. You have thousands of market sessions that you've been through. You know what's about to happen, or at least you have a likelihood of what's going to happen, and you execute. It's very similar, and I recommend everybody does it and plays it. But that's really it. That sums up the week. Like I said, a lot of ups and downs, bro. Like, fuck, man. Like I said, we got that first payout. We had that issue with our fucking accounts being fucking blown the day after, as well as that our evals nearly got fucked. But I'm confident in going into Monday. But it's just part of the journey, bro. Like I said, 100. I think I also realized that on this journey to 100k a month, and for everybody watching this, whatever your targets are, whatever your goals are, know that there will be adversity and there will be challenges on the way. And it is how you deal with it that will cultivate the end result of you making that shit work or you not making that shit work. So aside from that, I hope everybody enjoys their weekend, whatever you're watching this. Hope you have a good week, or had a good week, and you have a good week. And keep fucking crushing, bro. Talk soon.